Suns per Adrian Wojnarowski. So according to Woj, the Washington Wizards are finalizing a trade to send all-star guard Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns. Sources tell ESPN Beal's waiving his no-trade clause to form a new Big Three with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Teams are still working through the framework, but Beal is headed to the Suns. So the Phoenix Suns are going to have a Big Three of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, which offensively is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Right? Like, good luck trying to slow these three down. Good luck trying to stop these three on the defensive side of things. Big concerns are injuries, right? Bradley Beal has not been a model of health lately. Neither has Kevin Durant. Devin Booker has dealt with his little things here and there. The biggest issue, though, is just depth, defense, size. All of these things are extremely, extremely important on a potential championship run, and I don't see this working out the way that they think they will. Now, you're going to have those ring chasers, those vet guys that'll come in for a vet minimum that want to try to get a ring, but that doesn't mean that we've seen things like that where they usually come in, they're usually at the tail end of their careers, so they're not going to have the impact that you need. How good defensively are they going to be? Like, yes, Phoenix can just look at guys like Stanley Johnson. Like, just go get guys that aren't very good at scoring the basketball or shooting well or anything, because you got more than enough with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. At this point, you just need to go and get, just guys that can hustle, play on the defensive side. You keep Bismack Biyombo. Depending on what is traded, if they can keep DeAndre Ayton, which I absolutely do not see how they're able to keep DeAndre Ayton, but they can, technically. If they keep DeAndre Ayton, then that could solve a lot of those problems, right? Because you could turn Ayton into one or two, maybe even, if you're really lucky, three quality rotation guys that can be starters or come off the bench. And now you start rounding out a nice core there. If you don't, and you end up having to give him up, then you basically have these three and like 10 vet minimum guys. And it's like, I don't know if you're going to be able to win that. They are trying to replicate what the Nets did with James Harden, because when it was working, right? You had James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. It was a great Big Three. They had a lot of success when they were able to play together. And that became a thing. Harden got hurt, and then he wanted out, and Kevin Durant, and all of that. So they're trying to replicate that. But here's the difference between the Nets version and this Phoenix version. The Nets version were able to go and get James Harden, one, with the previous CBA, which is a big difference, because you still get like exceptions and stuff like that. Now you don't get any of those things. Two, you also had a roster already pre-built that you were adding Harden to, right? Like, they still had guys like defensively, like Nick Claxton, who could come in, play the center position, could rebound, could defend, could block shots, all of that stuff. They had other shooters around them, a Seth Curry, Joe Harrison. Like, they had guys and pieces around the roster already that were there prior, that were already good, that they were able to keep that roster intact. The Phoenix Suns don't have that. They're probably getting rid of, best case scenario, they get rid of Chris Paul and Landry Shamet. Then again, now you got basically a bunch of vet minimum guys. And I don't know how much talent and depth can you get with a bunch of vet minimum guys, right? Like, Miami's had some success, but those were all like young, undrafted. Like, this free agency market is not very good. Period. It's pretty top heavy, and it's only like 3 guys at the top. And then once those guys are gone, then that's pretty much it. So, you're talking about the top heaviness. And then all the way down, there's like a couple like mid-tier, like blue chip guys that are like, like a Brook Lopez or something like that. Like, those guys would be great, right? But Phoenix they're not going to take a vet minimum. So Phoenix isn't going to get a guy like that. So now you're looking at like Bismack Biyombo and stuff like that. Like, I don't know how you're going to round out a competitive enough roster, and how are you going to stop anybody? And the problem is Bradley Beal his injury history could be the end of the Phoenix Suns. Right now, look, if they're able to like round out a roster and Beal doesn't miss like a million games, then they would be fine. But if they end up having Beal miss 40 games, then they're in big trouble because they're not going to have the depth to really carry on. And then if Kevin Durant gets hurt, or what if they get worn down, all of those things. But as I was recording this, according to Shams, the news just came down. So the Washington Wizards are trading 3-time All-Star Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, a handful of second-round picks, and multiple pick swaps, league sources tell The Athletic. The Suns now only have 4 players under guaranteed contracts: Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, DeAndre Ayton. $161.5 million total for those 4, and not much flexibility to make more changes. The big question: does Ayton get moved? This is per Kevin O'Connor on that. Ayton's going to end up getting moved. I am shocked that they were able to get Bradley Beal for basically a bag of chips. Like, I understand Washington just wanted to move off of Bradley Beal and get off of his money, but still, I mean, this is like, you're talking about just basically getting nothing. You got a bunch of second-round picks and some pick swaps, right? You're not going to use those pick swaps. Phoenix is going to be good for the next, 3 to 5 years at least. So they basically just unloaded Bradley Beal for the sake of unloading Bradley Beal. But back on track to like, I just don't see this having major success. Now, does Bradley Beal kind of get over the injury bug because he's not the guy, right? Now he's like the third guy. Is he able to get over that hump, where he doesn't have to play 40 minutes a game and go get 30 a game and all that stuff, where he can kind of play as another dude, right? Like, does that help? Also, when you're on a Wizards team that's tanking and is just terrible and you're not making the playoffs, and, say you get a knee injury, right? And that knee injury keeps you out for a month. Well, maybe you take a month and 3 weeks or a month and 2 weeks, right? Because you don't want to, you're not trying to rush back and kill yourself for a team that's not even going to make the playoffs. Where if you're on a team like the Phoenix Suns, if it's a month, maybe you're back in 3 weeks because, you're trying to make a push for an NBA championship. Again, I get it. I just, doesn't really make a lot of sense for Phoenix. Like, it made sense for a team like Miami because they still have other guys. A team like the Lakers made sense because they would still have had other guys. It wouldn't have just been, Bradley Beal, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and a bunch of vet minimum guys. They still would have had Reeves. They still would have had Rui. They still would have had Vanderbilt. They still would have had, Christie. They would have been able to go and get some guys. It's different when you're playing for a contender as opposed to a team that isn't going anywhere. Even if we make the playoffs, we're getting smacked in the first round. Like, the most success that they really ever had with Bradley Beal was when Russell Westbrook was on the team and they made it to the playoffs and with like basically just Russ and Beal and ended up getting smacked, right? And that was kind of the last time Beal was really healthy too. So that is something to keep in mind. But I get it. I get the allure. I get the idea, because again, we talked about it with the Lakers, right? We talked about the Lakers potentially making a move for that and how that would work out and shape up. And so I get the idea of like Bradley Beal as like your third option would be great, right? That would be brilliant. But if you have a roster already intact, right? Like, that's the difference. If you already have a roster intact, then sure. A Miami, somebody like that. Sacramento was even interested in trading for Bradley Beal. Okay, that made sense, right? Because you could go and trade for Bradley Beal, but still keep like your core guy. You still keep Sabonis and Fox and stuff like that. So you're basically just adding him and creating your own big three, right? Like, that could be okay, I get that. I see that. I understand that vision. That makes a lot of sense. But when you're talking about a Phoenix Suns team who basically only have 4 guys on their roster and now are already almost they're like $10 million away from that cap. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I just look at it and go, I don't get it. I don't. But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting season, right? Because If they don't win, this is going to be really bad for the Phoenix Suns. This is going to be really bad for Kevin Durant, right? Because Kevin Durant, again, creating all these super teams and just isn't winning. The only super team you ever won was the one that you went to that was already established before you got there. Like, that's just not a good look for Kevin Durant, right? You made all these super teams in Brooklyn. You're making all these super teams in Phoenix. That's not good. Phoenix, you basically are handcuffing yourself to 3 players. If those 3 guys can't win it for you, you're screwed. You're in trouble. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think of Bradley Beal going to the Phoenix Suns? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you indifferent? Do you kind of feel like, they're in trouble regardless? Or how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know.